Monday, July 29th. I have half a notion to write the Postmaster General and tell him what I think of the way the mail is being handled at Grover's Corner. I suppose most rural mail carriers are pretty nice, but the one who delivers the mail to us isn't very cooperative, or very intelligent for that matter. Of course, from the things he said, I guess he doesn't think much of Midge or me either, so things are about balanced. For the past 2 or 3 days, we haven't had even one rabbit. Midge had the idea that if we let Matilda out of the pen to run loose, she might decoy Jedediah back with her. And she might get as wild as he is, I objected. Not if we don't leave her out for too long, Midge said. I've let her go several times, and she lets me walk right up to her. I finally agreed, because one rabbit alone isn't very much good when you want to raise rabbits to sell. Anyhow, we let Matilda out. Midge was right. At first she was able to walk up to the rabbit without much trouble. For a while it looked as if the scheme might work. That evening, about dusk, Matilda came hopping up to the pen, and Jedediah was with her. We had left one end of the pen open, and the plan was to wait until they were both inside eating, and then to slip up and close the opening. Jedediah went inside, and he seemed hungry. However, he wasn't so hungry that he forgot to keep an eye on us. Midge was within 3 feet of the pen when he bolted out and ran for the tree. We left the pen open, and I suppose Matilda hopped back out after she had eaten. We saw them several times yesterday, but we didn't get very close. I don't know whether Matilda had decided she liked freedom too, or was just following Jedediah, but she hopped away too. Midge began to get worried. "He's a bad influence," she said. "I should never have let Matilda go out with him." This morning, about 10:30, as I was walking toward the lot, I saw both rabbits beneath a rose bush in the miller's front yard. I hurried to the barn to get a net, and then over to Midge for help. She got her father's fishing net and came along. Both rabbits were facing the same way, and I don't know whether they were dozing or not, but we crept up quietly until we were only a few feet behind them. They didn't move. We have had a lot of practice trying to catch Jedediah with a hand net, so I suppose we had to do it sooner or later. We both pounced at once. Our timing was perfect, and Midge got one rabbit, and I got the other. "Hurrah! I'm finally a member of the firm!" Midge shouted. I had caught Matilda, and Midge had caught Jedediah. I reached in and got Matilda by the nape of the neck and pulled her out of the net, kicking and squirming like mad. A big rabbit like that is not easy to hold. Finally, I got her cradled in my left arm, still holding onto the loose skin of her neck with my right hand, and then she quieted it down. Midge had a much rougher time. Jedediah was wild, and he wasn't giving up without a fight. He kicked and ripped a hole in the net. Afraid that he would ruin the net, Midge lifted him out. He came out easily enough, but then he really began acting up. Her arms were bare, and in a couple of seconds he had scratched her left arm so badly in several places that it was all over blood. "I can't hold him much longer," she said. "What will I do?" We were standing beside the miller's mailbox. Grover's Corner is on the rural mail route, and everyone has sheet mailboxes on posts out beside the road. The miller's mailbox is a big one, and suddenly it occurred to me that we could use it. "Stuff him in there," I suggested. Midge yanked open the mailbox, shoved Jedediah inside, and slammed the lid shut again. The lid fits tightly, so we weren't worried about the rabbit getting out. Carrying Matilda, we headed back toward the barn. We had to close the end of Matilda's pen before we put her in it. Then we went over to Midge's to locate something to use in carrying Jedediah back. We weren't satisfied with an ordinary pasteboard box because we didn't want to take any chances. Finally, we found an old peach basket with a lid. We were gone about 5 minutes when we got inside of the mailbox again. We saw a Willie's Jeep station wagon belonging to the mailman parked out in front. "Don't open the mailbox!" we both shouted, and we started running down the road. We were too late. Mr. Mason, the mailman, opened the mailbox just as we yelled. He had driven up close to the mailbox. He rolled down his car window and opened the lid. He was about to shove some letters in the box when a rabbit jumped out, practically in his face. Since the open car window was only about a foot away, naturally Jedediah went right through it. He landed half on the steering wheel and then tumbled into Mr. Mason's lap. The rabbit wasn't as surprised as Mr. Mason, and he recovered sooner. He scrambled out of Mason's lap and onto the seat beside him. Mr. Mason had a big pile of letters stretched out on the seat, all arranged according to his route. What that rabbit did to that mail shouldn't happen to anyone. It was scattered all over the seat, and on the floor, as though a hurricane had hit it. Then Jedediah jumped into the back, which was filled with packages and still more mail. Mr. Mason let out a bellow and lunged over the seat after him. By this time, I was standing at one front window looking in, and Midge was at the other. There was a mad scramble in the back of the station wagon, with letters flying and packages sliding every which way. Jedediah raced around like a crazy rabbit while Mr. Mason flailed around after him. Finally, Mason made a dive and came up holding a rabbit by his ears. "You got him!" Midge shouted. "Good for you, I'll take him." Mr. Mason climbed back over the front seat, puffing and red-faced. Still holding Rabbit by the ears, he shoved him through the open front window. I was hurrying around the front of the car to Midge's side because I had the basket. Before I got there, the rabbit doubled up his hind legs and kicked. 2 long red scratches appeared on Mr. Mason's arm. He gave a bellow of pain and let the rabbit drop. Midge tried to catch him, but she didn't get a good grip. The rabbit gave a mighty kick and shot out of her hands into the bushes. "Why'd you drop him?" Midge demanded. "Because the vicious little beast was ripping me to pieces," Mason said angrily, looking at his arm. "Now we'll never get him," Midge said disappointedly. "You might at least have held him a second longer." "If you think you've got troubles, look at this car," Mason said. "I spent 2 hours sorting that mail, and now look at it. Well, you two can tell anybody that asks that this route is going to be mighty late in getting its mail today." He glared at the scattered mail. 2 hours' work wasted." "We've had weeks of work wasted," I said. "That's how long we've been chasing that rabbit." "Well, you certainly picked a fine place to put him when you did catch him," Mason said. "We just put him there until we could get back with the basket," I said. "He was a male rabbit," Midge said innocently. For a minute I thought Mr. Mason was going to explode. Then he put his hands on the edge of the window and leaned partway through. He stuck his jaw out and said, "If I find that male rabbit in another mailbox, I'll stamp him, and good."